Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Walter. I'm kind of doing an unexpected podcast at the spur of the moment. I just had one of these days that kind of is why I actually originally made a podcast in the first place. It was a way of just venting. And also, I want to try to still experiment because I'm not quite sure if I need to continue. I mean, this is so easy because I could just put it together and in like a few minutes, actually setting up the equipment. Before it was a real kind of a big task. And now it's actually much, much easier because, once I perfect it, because I'm trying to look for the proper software. I mean, I've tried other software. I actually like Audacity the best. But personally, I think it works. For me, it works most efficiently under Linux. And I'm experimenting with using actually Audacity that was made for Windows 10. It's a special copy, apparently. And my big issue is I don't know how clear it sounds, because I did listen back to my podcast that I did a few days ago, and the volume sounded pretty good. But there was a section that it kind of phased out. So, and I said, if I have this issue, I might just have to run Linux on this desktop in a window. And I looked into it, and it looks like it's a little bit more than I really want to be bothered with. I could dual boot Linux on this computer, but then even that's a little bit of an issue I don't want to deal with right now. So my other option would be to just run Linux on the laptop that I had been doing my podcast for quite a bit of time now. So I'm not sure yet. Again, if I could find a decent software program that will allow me to run it on Windows 10 and it actually works really well, then I'll go that direction. I actually was going to buy, because I did purchase at a good price, Adobe Premiere and Adobe Photoshop as a package deal for like $90 because it was on sale. And it was two for basically one, the cost of one product. And then I saw they do have an audio editing program, but then they don't let you buy it outright. You have to buy it on a subscription. And I don't like that. I like being able to own a piece of software because I don't know when I'm going to use it. I mean, this is an exception to the rule, obviously, because I don't do podcast, 2 in 1 week. I used to, when I first started, if you talk to my friend Matt, he'll tell you that, I did them every day. And I haven't done that in a very long time. Hey, by the way, on a side note, this is not what I actually intended to talk about. But I saw one of my favorite movies of all times, at least series of movies, horror movies, Friday the 13th. They're going to release a steel box Blu-ray in May. I think there's a Friday the 13th coming up in May. So I've owned so many different copies of this damn film. But now they're going to release on the original movie, the original Friday the 13th, a steel box edition. Because I think that's probably when the 13th, Friday the 13th, the next one will be. Not a movie, but I mean the actual date of Friday the 13th. Because this month is going to be Friday the 14th, which is Valentine's Day. That's another thing that's just kind of depressing. Not that I really care, but I tell you, I did a lot of thinking tonight, very deep thinking, that it got to the point people were saying, are you all right at work tonight? It's like, not really, but I'm not going to let you know that. And a lot of it is I just am at the point that I'm just so sick and tired of like life in general. Like I was thinking to myself, what is the purpose of even going on? Because, I had a crappy job. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. I had a really, really crappy job that I did not like whatsoever. It was like beyond horrible. And the only reason I stayed at it is because it paid really well. And I got stuck in this situation that I was at this crappy job for like 20 or 18 years. And there was not one thing about it that I actually enjoyed. There was nothing. But the pay was so good that I couldn't resist but to stay there. And that was a mistake I made on my own. I mean, I should have known better that, and I over the years, I would tell myself, it's like, okay, if I could find something else, I would take it in a heartbeat because I just don't like the job I was at. It wasn't what I intended to go to school for. It was basically a glorified janitorial job that paid extremely well. I mean, more than any job that I've ever had. And I stayed there, like I said, it was the money that kept me there. And the reason the money kept me there is because I was able to do things on the side, like stuff like probably podcasts, but it was earlier on. It was more like, doing video shorts and stuff, writing up scripts that were real simple and having myself act in them and setting them up, buying good, decent home equipment, nothing elaborate, nothing that was too pricey. And, I put films together over the years. Again, they were kind of like really cheesy, but it was a learning experience, and the podcast came out of that too. I was able to take trips, and that's another thing. I hope my voice doesn't keep on going in and out. Again, this is one of my experiments. But yeah, one thing I really had a lot of fun doing, and I can't even go, is going to concerts, doing these meet and greets with celebrities. That it was just part of the thing. Concerts and conventions. I saw a lot of people over the years that, I actually got a chance because I had the money to do so. People I got to meet, and I went as far as California that one time. And I had a blast, and I actually did a trip down to Covington, Georgia, and I, did it on a whim. I did set it up ahead of time, but I did it kind of on the whim. And I got to actually see where they shoot the show called Vampire Diaries. And over the years, I met other celebrities at all types of conventions, comic book conventions, horror conventions, science fiction conventions. I mean, again, this was stuff on a normal paycheck I would never be able to afford. And I was doing it, like every couple months because I had a lot of vacation time. We're at a place for, like I said, 18 years. There's a lot of vacation time that starts to accumulate over the years. And the pay was, again, phenomenal. It was like really, really good. So when I got to a job that pays probably above average of a normal job, but it's still in that spot where you're not making as much money. It's been really, really hard because I'm still living as though I'm making the money I used to. And it's hard. It's hard to live in a normal thing. And tonight it's been going south with me, meaning, being really stressed out, depressed, over this whole situation. But I think today, or now it is Wednesday, so it was on Tuesday. It really just sunk in that I'm like really getting depressed. I mean, like dangerously depressed. In fact, now that it is Wednesday morning, I don't know what it was. I was trying to sleep even on Monday night into Tuesday, and I just started having these really scary, scary kind of homicidal thoughts. Like, I'm getting to the point, I'm starting to like really almost lose it, like with my parents, because it didn't bother me before living home, with the parents for so many years after being out for a little bit of time. I apologize about that sound. But for some reason today it was like, or yesterday I should say, it really got the best of me. For some reason it was like I couldn't like shake this thought of just, I hate to say this, I was like wanted to like brutally kill my parents, and was like, where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? And then at work today, I was just in a real bad stupor. I was really depressed. I did not want to be there. And like, I need the money, I need the insurance, but I'm at the point now that, it's like, what's keeping me, like, I guess that's what there's a thing you learn in psychology, or I should say psychiatry, about your id, ego, and superego. But I hate to tell you, or I hate to say this, but the id part of me was actually getting the better of me. And the id is the part that you just do whatever you want to do. And for me, it wasn't killing my parents. Trust me, it wasn't that. But it was definitely like, what is keeping me from right now just walking out that door and not even regretting it? I mean, I wouldn't do that though, because simple fact is I really need the insurance, and I need even the little bit of money I make, which is extremely, extremely pretty pathetic compared to what I made. Is it really pathetic? No, absolutely not. I just heard change was something. I don't know what does that with Windows. I had this issue before. So again, this is a good test. If anybody out there knows who may listen to me, which I don't really see anybody that knows a good audio recording program, please just let me know, because I love Audacity, but it just does not work very friendly under anything except Linux, because that's where it originated from. That's the problem. But yeah, I was very close today. It was like I was zoning out. I was getting like I get more and more depressed going to this job I've been at for almost like 2 years. And now it's gotten to the point that trying to convince myself to not walk out the door is getting very, very difficult. That's why I wanted to do a podcast. I just needed to kind of vent. But then I heard, and it was like, wow, I wish I could do this. But there's a guy, he's, really nice black guy that I work with. He's a temp that just, a bunch of temps started at my job. I got hired at this particular job as a temp myself. And I was talking towards the tail end of the night, and we got in a conversation for a short period of time, and he says that he's working 2 jobs, and it's like, wow, you make me feel really lazy, because he said, oh, I need to work these 2 jobs. He's working 16 hours a day, and it's not easy because he's heavy and you're on your feet for all that time. And yet he's able to do it. And I'm complaining about working 8 hours and being like a big crybaby. So he made me definitely feel like an idiot. And it's like, he said, yeah, I need to do this. I want to get myself out of debt, and this is what I need to do. And it's like, you know what? I tip my hat and I bow down to him because he's doing something that I don't have the strength to do it. I really don't. I don't have the strength to work 16-hour days and get, like, come home, go to sleep, and go back to work at 6 in the morning. I can't just do it. I would love to. But mentally, I can't handle it. And probably a little bit physically, but more so mentally. I know it would definitely would tip the iceberg. But the thing that just made me think about what he said, hey, I work 2 jobs, and then I want to get myself out of debt. I thought about it. I was like, wow, right now I'm in debt for a little over $5,000. I could get myself out of debt in a matter of weeks if I would just do it for a few weeks. That was the one side of me. If you thought about this, like the ego side, not the super ego, but the ego side would say, if you could just handle it for a few weeks, you could get yourself right out of debt. You wouldn't be in this stupor. But then the other side of me says, well, you had a job making twice as much as you do now, and you always got yourself out of debt. And it was because I made twice as much money. But that's over with. And I remember, this is the weird thing, when I was at my job for all those years, the one thing I will say was I hated that job so much. I was like, you know what? I was ready to walk out of that job. And again, the only thing that kept me there was the pay, because it was just so great. And I was able to do things I couldn't normally do. And I figured, hey, someday I'll get myself out of this mess and I'll actually do in my life what I really want to do. I want to do something, kind of, not quite, but something like in the entertainment field. But after 18 years, did I get any closer to doing so? No. I mean, I do a podcast. But the problem is I have no one who really listens to me as well. By the way, I apologize. I got to turn off my alarm alert. It's actually so early in the morning, and I don't know how well this is going to sound because, again, I'm still experimenting with, I might end up going back to doing a podcast on Linux. But if that happens, I won't be doing these last-second type podcast either, because I won't have the time to do that, because it takes more. It's a little bit more involved, actually a lot more for me, because it means finding a table that I stash away and propping that up and pulling the cables out and laying them across the floor. I mean, it sounds simple enough, but it's aggravating. This is easy because I'm doing everything from my desktop. It makes a really big difference. Anyway, since I am doing a podcast at last moment, and it won't be that long, well, it's actually already almost 20 minutes, I wanted to correct something I said, which kind of, to me, it means more than anybody else. Most people, they're going to say, well, we don't really care. And plus, I have to have somebody who's actually listened to me to care in the first place, or even not care. But I was mentioned, it was like, wow, I feel like a real horse's patoot. No, but I was like, it was kind of embarrassing, but I was like, I was speaking about have this new computer, and it's got an i7 8-core processor, and it had hyper-threading turned on. So I was like, yeah, this is great, because I've had hyper-threading for years when I buy like laptops that have Intel chipsets in there. Now I have my Linux laptop that has an AMD processor, and it runs really nicely as long as you're not running Windows and you're running Linux. It runs beautiful. So that says a lot, because if I was actually my one intention on this new computer was actually to run Linux as my main system on that. But I didn't do so. I figured, well, there's a lot unfortunately, under Microsoft that I do like running, and it would be a lot more difficult. So, but yeah, it was like, okay, I know for years, and it was funny because somebody wrote an article about this that just, I think, in the past generation, it's like one before my processor and my new desktop, Microsoft turned off hyperthreading. So it was like, wow, I feel like a real ass. I'm bragging about that I have an 8-core system that has this thing called hyperthreading. And I explained it. Well, hyperthreading to me and to anybody else, if they hear that word, if you cut out any technical jargon, because I don't understand it myself, it basically, what it did was it mimicked as though there's these things called threads per core. And the simplest way, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible to explain it, you had the old processors, and the old i7 with 8 cores. Mine's like I think it's called a 9700, but like 2 generations ago, you would have an i-Core 7. An i-Core 7 with 8 cores, maybe even more. You could even have up to 16, where the hyperthreading was turned on, and it would act as though, it would have per core, which are these things called threads. What exactly it means, I have no clue. But it would have 8 cores on one chipset, and each core would have 2 threads. So kind of maybe understand what I'm trying to get at. So what that turned out to be is like, okay, you have an 8-core chip where Intel, did I say Microsoft before? Because I apologize if I did. An 8-core chip with hyperthreading turned on with 2 threads per core. So what it looked like, or how it acted like on certain programs that could take advantage of this hyperthreading, it looked as though you had 16 cores and not 8. So that's what made, it kind of only worked with certain things, not everything. So because what this person, in this one article I read, or this one article that I read, as opposed to saying it was a person, which it was, they mentioned, they just for some reason, I know why they did it. It was pretty obvious. They put out an iCore 9. So what they did was, on their iCore 7, which was Intel's high grandiose processor chips, I believe, don't quote me on this one because I was wrong before, they turned it off on the iCore 7, or quote unquote, they no longer have it. But somebody speculated that, is it still there and it's just turned off? Because if you remember back in the day, they used to have these things called, Celeron chips. And Celeron was basically it was an Intel Pentium chip back in the day, where certain parts of the chipset was like turned off. And it was basically what I would call, it was like neutered, or it was, held back. And what they would do is, when you make CPUs, they're made on what's called like a large wafer. And what they do is, off that wafer, they get many, many processor chips off of one wafer. It's on a big wafer disk, whatever. And they test these chipsets out. They make so many per wafer. And the ones that, they can like kind of do stress test on, and they do really well, that the chipsets are, the CPU is overclockable. What they do with those, they make those the high-end CPUs, and they will charge you an arm and a leg for those. The ones that they have a little bit of a flakiness or something, the stuff that is not working properly, I'm giving you like the most basic idea, and it's not a very good one. They would shut certain things off on the chip, physically shut it off. and they would make those into Celerons. So that's how they used to make the cheaper end chips. So, but they shut off. I guess they called it executions or something like that. I think that was the terminology it was. Certain things on the chip that made it what it was. And it still worked. So instead of putting it into a trash bin, they made these chips that were good. They just weren't really good. They made them into low-end chips, and they turned off anything that could cause complications. And voila, you have your Celeron. Again, if you talk to somebody who is a real geek, they're going to say, that guy has no clue what he's fucking talking about, meaning me. But that's like a very basic, easy-to-understand explanation. So, miraculously, Intel on their high-end chips are no longer high-end chips. They're the middle ground chip. And by doing that, I believe they took what was like a well-branded name for many years for Intel, known as the i7 chip, which was like you couldn't get anything better than that. Then they started making what was called i5s for many years. And then they made ones called i3s, which to me, it is a standalone chip, but that was like the new Celeron. That's like your cheapest chip if you're not going to do anything spectacular. So, Intel has definitely had some competition now with AMD. Now they put out something called Threadripper, which is a 32 or 64 chip, 64 CPU chip, 32 processor chip, or 64 processor chip. Intel can't even match that at this point. And even though AMD is making these chips, which are rather expensive, they are, per CPU core, much cheaper than what Intel could even afford to make. Now, they have another one. I forget what it's called. There's like two branded chips, but Threadripper is the one that's kind of making a name tag for itself with AMD. So, going back to Intel doesn't have anything spectacular, but then all of a sudden, after they knew AMD had these two new processors, the one I can't remember the name, but I do know the one that is really making some waves and making some news on the internet is called the Threadripper. So miraculously, Intel puts out an i9 chip, and I believe this thing called hyperthreading is on. And it is also Intel's high-end consumer chip right now. So what I think they did is, there's no way to say yes or no, the i7 miraculously no longer has hyperthreading turned on. So I think what they were trying to do is they turned the hyperthreading off, or they locked it out on these i7 chips. Because somebody wrote, like, is there a way maybe that it's not there, that it is there, this hyperthreading, and possibly is there a way to turn it back on? To me, it's just a way of Intel saying, look, we do have something new, which they don't. They just probably rebranded the i7 chip, called it an i9, which I've heard it is basically that. The only difference between the old i7 and the new i9 is one still has hyperthreading on and the other one doesn't. Excuse me. So, again, I just went off on a big tangent, a big thing that means nothing to most people. They didn't even want to do a show this long. I did kind of want to vent, though. And by the way, another thing that's really depressing for me, not having the money I have, and this is another thing that just kind of put me in this stupor, because I'm going to name this episode. I had to come up with an idea for a name, so I'm calling it just calling it Living Dead, Living Dead. Is that, I feel that way. I feel like the character in James Joyce's story, The Dead, where the guy feels like he's kind of just wasted his whole life. I mean, I just turned 53, and that's depressing. And then my one friend Matt said the other day, he says, yeah, the last thing you want to do at this point is like, because he's doing very well for himself, I think, is the last thing you want to think about is like, wow, I only have 20 years to live or whatever. That's the last thing you want to think about because, like, life is doing good for him. I'm actually thinking the complete opposite. My life is, like, in shambles, and I just see my debt kind of climb up like I'm going to eventually drown in my own debt. And I'm at a job that not only anymore am I miserable, I'm making far less money. And I can't do what I did before. Because there's like concerts that are being surfacing, there's concerts that are surfacing now. And I look at them and it's like, well, I'm not going to these concerts. One, because I don't have the money. Two, because I don't have the money. And thirdly, I don't have the fucking money. So, yeah, that's extremely depressing. And then, ice on the cake, I love, very simple, there's these comic book conventions around the house that are right down the street. And for the last couple of years, they've gotten some pretty big names for people who, like me, thrive on this stuff, like certain celebrities. And I'm trying to think, celebrities and musician, because one was that I got to see, and it was like my last hurrah, was I got to see Alice Cooper. And it was at a freaking comic book convention that he drew a very large crowd for a comic book convention in Oaks. And they've been pulling in, like, there was an actor who played in Doctor Who in one of the episodes as Doctor Who, but he wasn't as known for that as he was known for a character that was a villain in Game of Thrones. So, yeah, they've gotten some pretty big names, and it's really close to the house. It's a lot cheaper than going to Philly as far as what they charge, but that's even becoming, like, impossible for me to do. So, like this year, for instance, they have Sylvester McCoy, who played Doctor Who number 7, and the actor who played Doctor Who in the Fox movie when the BBC went to Fox to make a Doctor Who pilot in the U.S., and it had never taken off. That actor is still getting, I can't remember his name. I'm going to have to look that up. But he's still getting, like, parts and stuff, doing voices and things, playing the Doctor that he played on that one-time show. And so, like, the actor's still getting jobs through BBC doing that character, being one of the Doctor Who's. In fact, they made sure to incorporate that Doctor into the 50th anniversary. So, I wish I could remember his name, though. Let me look real quick. I think it was 97. I can't remember. Good God, if that is, that's a long time ago. Even for me. I'm guessing, because it was off the air for a while, and then they try to bring it back by BBC. Oh, maybe it was 96, actually. I was really close. Paul McGeehan? Yeah, the movie came out on the 31st December of 1999, and it was actually pretty good. Eric Roberts played the Master. I actually really liked Eric Roberts as the Master. God, that's hard to believe. Well, actually, technically, the movie came out in 1996. But Paul McGeehan is still, let's see, directed by Jeffrey Sachs with Paul McGann, not McGeehan, so I got that wrong, too. Hey, I'm always getting things wrong. Paul McGann, Eric Roberts, and Sylvester McCoy, and somebody, Daphne Ashbrook. She played, like, the role. Well, I hate to say it, but if it wasn't for the episode they made with Fox back in, technically it was 96. If it wasn't for the way they had that episode set up with the way the TARDIS looked a lot different from what it looked in the past, you would have not had the new Doctor Who that you see on the BBC nowadays. So that played a big major part, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm trying to wrap this up because I only wanted to be like half an hour. It's already going on over half. Not my normal hour shows because it's 4 o'clock in the morning almost. But yeah, that being said, and plus I'm experimenting still with this new setup. So I don't know how badly it's going to sound because it's barely showing up on the screen as like getting a level. But yeah, I really went off track. But yeah, I mean, again, Paul McGann, Sylvester McCoy, they're going to be at a Doctor Who convention this year. Now it's starting to pick up again. The mic is more focused, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I can't do things like that because I'm going to try. I'll probably put it on the credit card, but you know that debt is getting kind of heavy. You know, it started out only being like $1,000, and now it's up to $4 more grand, $5,000 altogether, $5,000, a little over. And you know, one thing when I was talking earlier, I was talking to this guy tonight. He's like, "Yeah, I work 2 jobs. I work 16 hours. I got to be at work at like 6:30 in the morning or something, and he works 12 hour or what is that? 16 hours every day, Monday through Friday, and even overtime probably on the weekend." And he's a temp, and it's like, you know what? My heart goes out to you. I wish I had your strength because I would be out of debt in a matter of a couple weeks. I wouldn't even have to worry about it. But the problem is, you know that's not going to be the end. I'll make new debt because I'll be so, like, burned out from working too much. But the thing is, it would definitely get me out of debt for now. But there's got to be a simpler way. And me being really depressed tonight was just like, yeah, it got really bad. It got really bad. And then just those, you know, I hate to say it, not only like thinking of like, wow, maybe I really do want to kind of commit suicide at this point. I'm just so depressed. And then like earlier yesterday, when I was in that kind of awake but still sleeping and dreaming, having these really disturbing thoughts about homicide. It's like, yeah, this is not good. This is like me going off the deep end, you know, again. So, yeah, that's not a cool thing. And that's why I needed to do a show, too. I just hope it sounds okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been harsh. And then my dad, he didn't do it intentionally, but the icing on the cake the other day is my dad was talking to somebody from our old job. I worked in a union, and our union president he said, oh, yeah, making the money he does now, being the union president and doing certain things. He just bought his wife, this guy, a brand new like BMW or Mercedes Benz as a present. And it's like, yeah, back in the day, I wasn't that loose with my money, but at the same time, I wasn't living so uncomfortably either, and I wasn't working as hard. Like I'm at this job now where I'm on my feet for 7.5 hours with only 1 30-minute break. And it's horrible. I'm used to going into a job, and I'm thinking, this is going in my head the whole time, going into a job, and, you know, yeah, it was a real pain in my fucking balls. But going in, getting done what needed to get done, and afterwards, do whatever it's doing it again. Do whatever I wanted to do. You know, because I would like kind of relax. Nobody would bother with me. I could just go, and I wouldn't hide, but I would go into a conference room at my other job after I was done doing my work. They knew where to find me because it was more than one occasion. Like a boss would say, "Hey, Walt, we need you to go in and clean this piece of equipment, clean this room. You know, when you get a chance." And I'd say, "I'll do it right now." I would joke with him at first. I'd say, "What? I'm on," and I would joke with him. I'm serious. I was just joking, but I'd say, "Oh, hey, I'm on a couple-hour break right now." And, they know I was joking. They know I wasn't serious. But I had the freedom of, like, being my own boss, not having somebody tell me what to do, and kind of working at my own pace. Now, sometimes, like a lot of times, yeah, it did get out of hand because, they're paying me a lot of money. They expect a lot more out of you, of course, too. But for some reason, the thing that kind of made it bearable, I didn't say it made it completely bearable, was the fact, again, that I was my own boss. I would go in at 4 o'clock. I knew by 8 o'clock or 8:30 I could take an hour lunch because or I would actually take a later lunch. I would take a 9 or 10 o'clock lunch, go in at 4, get stuff done that I needed to do, and, kind of just rest for an hour or so, do what I wanted to do. And I tell them, hey, if you need anything else done, or I got a text from one of the people who would give me, like, a boss who would tell me, because he was never there. He was a day shift boss. So he would text me what I needed to do or leave it on a bulletin board. This is what you need to do tonight. This is priority 1. Don't worry about anything else. And if anything else came up and he got a text at home from work, they would say, or the boss would say, hey, tell your boss we need you to clean this piece of equipment. We need it by 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, well, my shift's done by then. We'll ask them if you can stay and clean it afterwards, or we'll approve it. I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll do what you need. But I was like kind of almost equivalent to an independent contractor working at this job. And it was this one fluke that ruined that whole thing. I mean, yes, I hated the job, but also I was the one basically, to an extent, at the job as far as what was getting done. I was the one in control in some ways. Not every way, but control that I could, like, work a little bit less on my feet. Like, if I felt tired or if I felt sick, I would just say, hey, I'm sick. I'd take some time off. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a horrible job. And there were some horrible people that I worked with or for. But, I guess the main part, going back to that again, because I don't want to mislead people also, was definitely the pay. And, I had almost 5 weeks vacation. I would have had 5 weeks this year if I was still there. 5 weeks paid vacation. And I had 40 hours of personal time. So that's like 6 weeks vacation. So you can't beat that. You can't beat that. And, yeah, that just definitely has taken a toll on my health. Physically, mentally, you name it. So, and part of my debt was because I just went in the hospital emergency ward about a couple weeks ago, and I got the bill. It was only like a couple $100, but that's a couple $100. The rest was covered. It was like a bill for like $3,500 or $3,000. Everything was covered except like a smidgen, but that smidgen's still a lot of money to me. So, what can I say? I apologize. It sounds like it's going in and out. I'll check it back later, check back with it later. So, yeah, I mean, this is why I needed to kind of do a podcast and kind of vent at the last moment, because it's like going on 4 o'clock in the morning now for my time. Trying to think if there was anything else. Yeah, I was really depressed because I saw Birds of Prey. Yeah, it was kind of a depressing. It was kind of a boring film. It came in number 1, but it came in because it was the only thing really that was brand new out in the theaters. But yeah, the movie Birds of Prey, I went and seen on my birthday last week. Seemed to like do really bad. Actually, a lot worse than I even anticipated. I'm trying to see. Well, it made, it's still at like 33. Well, they're saying now it's like domestically it made a little over 35 million. Internationally, it made another 46.5 million. So it was a total of almost $82 million, which honestly is not that much. The movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix made like $100 million the first week it came out, the first weekend. So, and they do these day by day things. I'm looking at Box Office Mojo, and they said the movie made like another $2 million on Monday. That's like really, really bad. So, and that was very depressing. I actually enjoyed the film. I don't care what other people say. I thought it was actually really good. I actually watched Doctor Who on Sunday night, and I really enjoyed that too. So heaven forbid, I must be one of those radical left people who can't think for myself, I'm sure. Other than that, it is like 4 o'clock almost. I should kind of cut this off. Folks, I apologize. Again, I'm experimenting. And if anybody kind of knows anything that's remotely as good as Audacity is under Linux, but something that works really well on Microsoft, since I'm back in that universe, because eventually I'm probably it's going to get to the point I'm going to say, listen, I will just dual boot the damn system or try to set up a VR system on this computer and be able to run it. I preferably would like to run Linux on the Windows desktop where I can just go back and forth real quick. That would be the simplest solution, but how effective will that be? I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, folks, since it is so early in the morning and since I started like at 3 o'clock trying to do a podcast because I just needed to vent, I am going to sign off for now. I did not say that the last time. I always usually go, this is Walter from iWalter signing off for now, and I did not because it's really, I don't know. I do... my friend Matt did send a new piece of music, and I didn't like it. So I had a couple more of my friend Matt Torrance's music up saved. So I'm going to use the one he named We. And that's another thing real quick. I did want to get this off my chest. I want to get this in the next few minutes. It's going to still be probably an hour show, which was actually going to be a half-hour show because it was during the week, the middle of the week. But I'll tell you, one thing that this really irritates me, and I think this is another thing that's just getting me feeling homicidal and suicidal, is like when you leave, 10 or 12 messages during the week to friends, and they don't respond back to any of them. And yet I have this chat room with 2 friends, and they're, because my messages are, basically about a bunch of nonsense. I want to use like the word non-reciprocal, but I don't think that's the proper terminology or what I want to say. But yet I heard almost 25 or 50, maybe more messages in the last 2 days from the 2 of them on this 3-way chat room on our phones. And none of those messages had anything of, context. They were all complete nonsense. So it just makes me like really, really, really angry. And then, once in a while, it's either one friend or another friend, or even I only have like 3 really solid friends that I call friends. And all 3 of them do the same thing. Like the one friend, he only talks to me and he says, you don't have to bother with me when you have something you want to give to me for free or you want me to buy. You can come over anytime. So I try that, and I know the only reason he communicates with me is because he knows he's going to get like a really good deal on a piece of computer equipment, a laptop, a computer, an iPad, an iPhone, and he's like, a 200%, not a 100% complete hypocrite, because he basically contradicts himself, and the only way he does talk to me is when I do give him gifts. So, that really pisses me off. And then there's the other thing, well, Walter, the stuff you talk about is no interest to me, or, not to me, to the other person or one of the other people. They don't care what I'm talking about. But yet I suffer through, like the other 2 nights, I suffered through almost 30 minutes to an hour's worth voicemails and web links and stupid nonsense that to them means everything in the world, and it means nothing to me. I mean, it's total nonsense. And yet they think what they're talking about is like the best things. You know, I hate to use that phrase because there was that dumb commercial that actually made me laugh. It's like the best thing that they're talking about. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And it's like, it's nonsense. You're talking total fucking nonsense. It is boring as hell. I don't care about what you're going to eat tonight, or that you're going to the gym, or this person or that person I met. I don't give two flying fucks, but yet I'm supposed to give a shit about what you're talking about. You don't give a shit about the stuff I talk about. So don't be a hypocrite is what I want to say. And don't be hypocritical and say what I say is just like not interesting to you. Because what do you think I think when I have to, I actually take the time and listen to all your messages. And I take the I shouldn't say manly, the adult thing, and I actually respond back. Not anymore, I won't, because I'm tired of it. But, yeah, I'm tired of that nonsense. So, anyway, I'm going to play a song right now for my friend Matt Torrance, and it was called We. He did that just, I think about a week ago, but that's one I think I can put on the end of the show that I think was pretty damn good. So everyone, sorry for the long exit, but I am what I am going to end this show. So, everyone have a good night, and I will try to do a podcast soon again. This is iWalter.